Welcome. Today I am joined with Justian Frederick, our Indonesia top 8 player on Uzuri. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations on your performance. It was really amazing to see how you, being the only Uzuri at the tournament, was able to take down all of the classic constructed portion of the tournament with only dropping one game, which was a concession to a friend, not an actual loss, from what I've heard, and just demolishing the entire Swiss portion of the tournament. So, congratulations.
Thank you, Adia. I'm happy to be here. Pleasure.
Okay, so it's really interesting. Out of 54 players that joined the Indonesian National Championship, you were the only Azuri there. With
Yeah.
a new assassin being new, the new flashy hotness that a lot of people want to play, I would like to know why didn't you choose new?
Well, first of all, I have been playing Flesh and Blood since the release of Outsider, and maybe that's why. Like my first deck was Uzuri, and since then I haven't. Well, I have several decks right now. Like I have accumulated some Runeblade cards. I've played some Viserai, and I dabbled in some warriors, like some Dorinthia or like some Kasai, but I don't know. Uzuri just kind of like reels me back in every time I try to endeavor to new stuff. And well, I was kind of excited for the new assassin, right? Like new just looks like this new flashy deck that everybody was trying or like keen to crack. But yeah, unfortunately, I maybe doesn't have any enough repetition into it, and I just feel like in playing nationals where there's a lot of really talented people playing, I just have to bring my A game with my best and like most comfortable deck, and that's why I maybe that's my consideration into picking Uzuri as my deck of choice.
I see. So you feel like you didn't have enough reps on new and you haven't cracked the code on new yet, while you have Uzuri kind of solved. But Uzuri did get some new cards and part the misfail. How do you feel like the new cards impacted your Uzuri deck? Was it kind of how different is it from the Uzuri you played in the ProQuest heavy hitters meta?
Well, Uzuri certainly have a lot of like new assassin commons and majestics. Probably like the notable, like something that I like to mention is like the important cards such as Jasonic, Bonds of Agony, or like Persuasive Prognosis. I tried to include all of those majestic because it looks very powerful on paper, uh, but I don't know. I just kind of stick with like it. At the end of the day, like only Prognosis kind of gets into my deck, and I kind of cut Justin Nick and Bonds of Agony and the other assassins, new assassins coming in rare. Maybe it's just because my stylistic choice of playing Uzuri, but yeah, maybe if we explore those new cards down the line, we can kind of create a new version of Uzuri that might be even better than this one.
I see. So you only utilize the persuasive prognosis
Mhm.
as the new cards that you integrated into the deck. Okay, we're gonna discuss the deck itself in a bit more in depth later, but I would still like to know more about your preparation for the national season. Like, first of all, what was the one hero or class that you were most afraid to face in this tournament?
Well, obviously it's the new broken, I guess, quote unquote broken hero Zen, and maybe like a bit of enigma. So for Zen, I kind of like strategize around that new character. So later you can see that most of my sideboard are like revolve around beating Zen, and I also see that one of the main weaknesses of Uzuri is that well, it's assassin, right? Every assassin have this kind of like tendency to go very poorly into illusionists, and that doesn't exclude Enigma. So I kind of also side for Enigma, and I kind of have a lot of preparation mainly for those two heroes, uh, knowing that they are probably uh, there will be a major representation of Misvale hero in the nationals, because it's the new cards, like new characters. Everybody's trying to have a crack at it, and everybody's trying to play it, right?
Yeah, we did see that Zen was tied for the most represented hero, tied with KO, but Enigma, I feel like, didn't show up at all. She was nowhere near the top tables.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe it's because like Enigma is, I would say, like illusionists have a pretty interesting playstyle, and maybe that's why like people like well, a not a lot of people bring it to the nationals because maybe they're not comfortable yet, and b maybe people who bring it doesn't have enough repetition to perform at the like top tables, right?
I see. So that's for the bad matchups. So what are the matchups that you're happy to see with your deck as Azuri?
Yeah, so currently my list for Uzuri is kind of have this take on like half aggressive and half disruptive kind of play style. And I have a lot of go agains, I have a lot of disruptions, I have a lot of shreds, a lot of reactions. So I would, uh, I would say like my main favorable matchup is probably top decks that people usually bring, such as like KO, Azalea. Um, what else? I kind of catered my deck list to face off, like to fight against Guardians such as Victor as well, which is usually Uzuri are not favored. But yeah, I've kind of like tweaked things here and there to make it a bit favorable against Guardians. And for Zen, I kind of have a lot of uh, sideboard cards that is catered specifically for Zen, such as like Amnesia or like Weakest Link. So for me, like, I do have a lot of repetition against Zen players. So I guess the matchup will be like 50-50, or like maybe a bit. I have the edge a bit, but like overall, yeah, that's probably like uh, some kind of like some characters that I really want to face off, like basically KO and Azalea.
I see. So KO and Azalea, which were there were two each inside the top eight bracket, and
Hmm.
that's those two are very well represented as well, as they were S and A tier heroes that are very powerful and very consistent, and being a deck that's happy to face them, I'm sure that contributed to your tournament run. So before we discuss your run, let's dive in a bit to your deck list.
Yep.
I'm gonna skip over the common ones like flick knives, tunic, spider spite, and nerf scalpel and black tech.
Hmm.
Though
Hmm.
since those are like, if you play Azuri, you usually play those from what I understand, since I'm not an assassin player, but whenever I face Azuri, they're usually on these. They I would like to talk about the choice for headpiece, since Balance of Justice came out. I feel like a lot of heroes default to that headpiece instead of crown. Uh, and here you've listed it as part of your main deck and not part of your inventory. Although you do have the balance in your inventory for matchups that draw two. I'm interested why you choose the Crown of Providence as your main slot here.
Hmm. So basically, for Uzuri players, there's kind of like two line of thought, right? You either go to the contract route, which is a bit blue heavy, and you play this kind of like control style. You use your contract cards to like kind of chip away your opponent while getting like a couple of silvers, which can buy back your headpiece, which is the massive, what is it called?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Massive Perditions,
Yes.
yeah, or your black decks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I reckon for the more red line, for the more aggressive play style, Providence is kind of like the tried and true for Uzuri because first of all, it blocks for two, which is fantastic. It cycles your hand. Yeah, like you can sing and get like I don't know, maybe additional go again, additional shreds, or like any other reactions or enablers. And maybe the most important part for Providence is that you sometimes when you codex with Uzuri, you get a lot of like quote unquote breaks right after you use your ponder
I
and you
see.
activate your ponder. Like you probably have sometimes you draw a shred or like a spreading plate or maybe something like unfavorable that you really don't want in your arsenal. But they are like mostly the notable cards that you don't want in your arsenal are like shreds and spreading plague, and Crown of Providence is a really fantastic tool to basically let you still arsenal your shreds while like you don't have to be afraid for for that shred to be breaking in your arsenal for multiple turns, right?
Cool, cool. So it's basically an unbricking mechanism, but you do
Yep,
still use Balance of Justice for matchups such as ninjas that run Art of War and brutes that run Blood Rush Bellow, right?
yep.
Okay. So we see that you chose the red line and aggressive route instead of the controlling route. Would you care to explain why you made that choice and the overall archetype of Uzuri?
So I've been playing like throughout my days of playing Uzuri, I've been mostly dabbling in contract line.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I didn't play this kind of like play style like this red line aggressive Uzuri, but as the meta kind of like progresses, I guess the contract line is kind of like they're not doing enough, right? I mean, take example like the contract line strength are like they have a really consistent block value. Maybe you can get like 12 to 14 values on your hand just by like looking at pure stats such as like Ponder to Pour, they attack for four, and then the rest of your hands will be like three block cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like three times three, which is nine plus four. You got 13 hands value consistently, and you can get silver if it hits, which is like kind of like half a point of value for each silver. So that's like 13 and a half and 14 points of value consistently for the contract list, which is very powerful in my opinion, right? But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, in this card meta, I feel like that just couldn't cut it, right? For example, like we have a new aggro hero, which is Zen, which in like the problem is like their damage output is like uh, mid, and then one spike turn, and then like
Yep.
after that,
Yep.
you're basically just dead, right? So because Flesh and Blood kind of like relies on those range of like 12 to 15 kind of like point value of blocking, you cannot really block yourself out from Zen's kind of like spike turn, right? Which is sometimes can be like minimum of 30 damage. So I guess with contract, it's just you just couldn't close the game fast enough. Uh, it would be it would be kind of like hard to kind of like fatigue Zen, especially when they ran late game cards such as like the what is it the
Cosmic
Mystic,
Awakening. Yeah,
yeah,
I
Cosmic
I
Awakening.
love that card. Just
Yeah, exactly.
okay,
Like
have a life lead and then just okay, I'll take your
exactly right.
contract damage and I'll smack you 20 to finish your final like 5 or 10 life after my combo.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's why I feel like the contract list isn't really doing that much in this meta, especially with decks like KO or like Zen.
I see. So the consistent value that the contract list brought was uh very useful and very apparent in the heavy meta where everything was just a value battle, who can
Mhm.
grab the 13, 14, 15 value every turn will win the game overall. And KO, Kasai, and Azuri was very good at having that consistent value, but facing decks that don't play just with the numbers, they can have really small turns like 9 point value, 4 or 5 card hands, but they can have that 7 card hand, 40 damage. That the the math just doesn't math at that point, and you
Mm-hmm.
decide to lean in on the more aggressive route. Okay, so I see for the red line, uh, you sacrifice a lot of your block values, right? You're running a lot more two blocks with
Yep.
nimblism, rabble. Uh, what else are the two blocks? Yeah, you're running all three death touches instead of just one or two usually for contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So how many go agains do you run in your main deck?
Usually I bring like the 50 that's in the main slot
Mm-hmm.
usually stays there.
Okay.
Maybe I kind of like take out Rabble when I want to face something like Azalea. I don't want to get Red in the Ledger.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I kind of side out those cards. But usually it's like E-Strike,
Mm-hmm.
Rabble.
Okay.
Nimblism is kind of like a form of go again, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it.
Okay. And
Oh yeah, and I have the two enablers, right? Like looking for scrap or nimble strike
yeah,
for like matchups that are where I need to be more aggressive, such as like Enigma. I use those two cards to kind of like push the damage.
I see. So your main deck, your main 50 will stay usually for most matchups, and you have a sideboard of cards. You bring in 10 to 12 cards out of these inventory slots. Okay,
Mhm.
so your main deck looks pretty standard outside of the isolates. I heard a lot of Uzuris usually default to only six isolates, the reds and the yellows and the blues. I see here that you're running all nine isolates. Would you care to explain why?
So at the beginning, I was actually running six isolates, right? Like most of the Uzuri, but
Mm-hmm.
so originally I run six isolates, and the other three stealth card was Bonds of Agony. But I find that my red line plan, like for my red line plan, which is like the more aggressive one,
Mm-hmm.
Bonds of Agony is just too slow, and you need to give up like a lot of your equities just to get the get the effect
Yeah, the
going, right?
three reaction threshold is
Yeah,
quite
exactly.
difficult, right?
Yeah, so basically you have to pop your boots, pop your flick
Mask.
knife, and probably you need a shred or like a spreading plague, which is like not consistent because they can just say no block and you cannot shred anything, right?
Yep.
So I guess like people kind of like figure out when Uzuri bring Bonds of Agony, like usually it's just a threat, right? It's nothing real. They
Mm-hmm.
will probably swap it out. So they just like if they want to play it safe, they just block two cards, and now I cannot even swap my threats. So just like CNC or like Shakedown, like it's just blue stealth that doesn't do shit.
I see. Okay,
Exactly.
so you value isolates dominate being able to get you through with your uh, ge- degenerate on hits such as shakedowns and
Yeah, exactly.
surgicals that are being with a meta that people don't really like to block and people don't respect bonds of agony since they usually like are either okay just get it over with if you have the three reactions or I call your bluff. So with isolate being more consistent, that's why you chose to run it. But I see
Hmm.
you're still running the persuasive prognosis. What did you
Yeah.
cut for it, and
Hmm.
why you think persuasive prognosis is better?
So yeah, unlike bonds, like for prognosis, like you need to actually block it, right?
Yeah.
At least with one card if you're too lazy for it, or else like I can just say yeah, like no block, and now you lose a card from your hand, and I get one life, which is like really good for one card value, right? So usually if I have prognosis in my hand, I tend to kind of like play around. Let's say like I usually like to arsenal a prognosis,
Mm-hmm.
and on the Dexter I block three cards if I am able to do it in an effective way, and I just like slam prognosis, and usually like the one remaining cards in my hand is usually a sigil or like a rabble or like something like it's not a threat, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they respect prognosis so much sometimes they block one card, but most of the time they block two because if I
Yeah,
have
they're
one
afraid
card
of
in
the
hand,
swap, right? Since it's
exactly
still a
they
stealth card.
yeah, and usually people who really are well versed in the Uzuri matchup, they know that the red line bring a lot of stealth. Sorry, a lot of shred. So though that one card might be a shred, right? So you need to block more than one card, or else like I'm just gonna shred your cards, and then like the progress will still hit.
Yep, yep. Okay, that's very interesting. Other than that, you're running both the red and the yellow shreds. I'm not sure what. I'm certain that yellow shreds is just everywhere, but I'm not certain. Do people usually bring the blue one? I'm not certain that a lot of people bring the red ones. Could you elaborate more on the your
Mhm.
shred color choice and why you bring
Uh,
six instead of three?
so usually, yeah, usually people see the yellow shred and they're like, oh yeah, this is probably like the best shred there is
Yeah.
because it's a three blocks shred, which is like most of the card is three blocks,
Mm-hmm.
and you can pitch it for a dagger. You can use it for resources, right?
Yes.
And you can kind of like cycle it easily. But the red shred, I find it really interesting because first of all, it's I don't know. Maybe if I could run six yellow shred, I probably will do it. But uh, I kind of like realized throughout my matchup against Enigma
Mm-hmm.
that red shreds are really important because they bring a lot of like defense reaction, right? And that one, like usually my attacks come in breakpoint values like 1, 4, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
such as like leave no witnesses, they attack for 4, surgical they attack for 4, rebel they attack for 4, and usually uh, that one damage is really important because like it can pop a ward.
Okay, so you're bringing this in since you're considering a lot of people are bringing defense reactions or something that can actually be shredded for four. Since if they if you're only using this to shred a three block, you're having a red pitch that's not max value, right?
But still, like maybe like if even if the red shred only like shred three block card is still like a really huge value, right? Because usually shred is played when people didn't expect it, so that that have a value itself, which is like I
I
would rate
see.
it
Just
pretty
ensuring
big.
that you have the on hit of your powerful disruptive effect, making sure it hits is
Yeah,
very important to you. Okay.
and maybe there's a lot of like implied value to it, right? I really like the concept of implied value in Uzuri. Like for example, like if they see a red, like if they see I block with a red shred,
Uh huh.
I can guarantee you, like every time I have a three card hands and I just isolate them for like I just isolate them, and I have two card left
Mm-hmm.
in my hand, they will just they sometimes they don't know what to do, right?
Yeah, because they feel like if they block, they're gonna get shredded, but if they don't block, they're just gonna take the hit and get disrupted.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. So you like playing the mind games too. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Codex is I feel like just you always bring it. Oh yeah, why three death touches instead of just one or two?
So it is actually pretty funny because I used to bring one death touches.
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, I used to bring three death touches, and I came full circle to it, right? So I bring three death
Mm-hmm.
touches, and I feel like, oh, this suck. Like I don't have enough blocks. Like I won three blocks. Like for Uzuri players, yeah, we just love three blocks. It's just really nice for our hands.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then so I cut it to two. When I cut it to two, I kind of like uh, gaslight myself to think like, "Yeah, you know what, like if I have two, it's basically just a target for codex. So if I just want to use dead touches for codex, might as well use just one. And
I
then
see.
if I yeah but like if I just use one and it happens to be at the bottom of my deck, I just basically screw myself because
Yeah,
it's just
because
a
you
two
never
block.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a two block. It cannot do stuff when it's in your hand, except if you have a stealth. And yeah, uh, and maybe that's why I kind of like came full circle and just say like, you know what, maybe three is it's consistency matters, right? And that touch is a really powerful card. So in early games, I'm not hesitant to block with it. It's two blocks, yes, but
Mm-hmm.
at early games, two blocks and three blocks sometimes
Yeah,
doesn't
you can
really
afford to leak
matters,
some
right? Yeah,
damage early, right?
exactly. So yeah, I bring three just for the consistency,
Okay,
basically.
so what do you find the most used mode for this when you choose frailty, inertia, or blood rot, or is there as you use a specific mode for a specific hero?
So usually I just use my Unga Bunga brain and just pick Blood Rot every
I
time,
see,
right?
because your red line aggressive, you just okay
Exactly, like
make this do two more damage.
yeah, exactly.
Uh
Like
huh.
eight is bigger than six, so might as
Yeah.
well go eight. But
Okay.
uh, maybe like against KO, sometimes I like to pick Inertia. And sometimes for new, I always pick Frailty because usually I put Stealth and I switch it with Death Touch, and they usually don't like to block like isolate, right?
Uh huh.
So I just hit them for six, and they have full card hand, and I give them Frailty, and now they cannot
Yeah,
dagger.
their daggers are useless.
Exactly, and
Cool,
now
cool, cool.
they just fuck their turn.
Cool. Okay, so the final thing about your main deck I want to touch is the two Sigil of Solace. Why not one? Why not three? Why land on two?
It's basically so
Oh, do you
I
have
don't
the
know.
third in your
Uh-huh.
sideboard? No,
No,
right?
no, no, no.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
only use two. Two. I feel like for Sigil, two is like the sweet spot because I don't want to like I don't really like to draw Sigil of Solace, right? In the early games, you don't really like it, but like since I'm playing Uzuri, it can be used as a pseudo kind of like bluff, right? Like
Yeah,
every
you have
card
it
in
in
your
your
hand.
hand.
Yeah,
You play a
exactly.
stealth
That's the
card,
power
and
of
they're like,
Uzuri.
"Oh
Like every
no!"
card in your
Yeah,
hand is a threat.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, usually it happens really often. Like I just have prognosis and sigil, and I just slam prognosis, and they like overblock, and I just like arsenal my sigil or like use it if I have
Oh yeah,
arsenal,
and
right?
it's also a good arsenal target since whenever they CNC or do something to
Exactly, right.
disrupt, you can just play it,
Uh-huh.
right?
And I kind of noticed like the top decks right now, like Zen and KO, for example,
Mm-hmm.
like they once they kind of like beat you down to like uh less than 5 HP, like on the single digit kind of like health points,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of like they kind of like change their strategy, right? For example, like Zen, if you're on like 2 life, they kind of like want to play wide and they just use the crouching tigers. They
Uh-huh.
value that more.
Yeah,
And for
instead
KO,
of going
they
in for
yeah,
big damage, that for example, instead of swinging for seven, which is in total seven damage, but in one swing that you can block with two cards and leak one, they play like 1 1 2 2, right? That's
exactly,
in total
right.
it's six damage, which is one less, but it's they feel like, oh, it's since it's more annoying, I'm gonna leak more damage or take more cards.
hmm and for KO, like they like to play around like their reckless swing.
Ah,
So
true, yeah.
yeah, and I see that for these kind of like aggro decks, when they kind of like pivoted into certain strategies, such as going wide
Mm-hmm.
or like trying to hit you with their reckless swings, they really put a lot of equity down, right? So for example, like
Yes.
maybe they can hit really big and really hard, but they sacrifice that for like like yeah, I'm just gonna hit you for 1 1 2 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 something like that, right? And
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
sigil, like their plan is just kind of like backfire on themselves because they already put so much equity into it.
I see. Okay, that's really cool. Let's talk briefly about your sideboard. Which card goes into which matchup and oh yeah, we already talked about you dedicate who you dedicate them to, but since there are lots of matchups, let's just go over the big ones. Let's see. For Zen, what do you bring in?
So for Zen, I side out Rebel,
Okay.
and I bring like three amnesia, three weakest link.
Uh huh.
I bring out all of the defense reactions, and
Okay,
I
you
think that's like 61 cards. Yeah.
Okay, so you bring in the eight defense reactions and six extra threats, and you take
hmm
out three rebels.
Yeah, which brings it to 61, if I'm
Yep.
not mistaken. Yeah, and I also like to side in Scale Peeler, and I usually side it out for Nerf Scalpel. But sometimes when the ninja have a lot of defense reaction, I usually just don't bring Spider's Bite at all.
I see. Okay. It's very interesting because usually you think Scale Peeler is used for warriors when they're Valiant Dynamo, right? But now you're
Mhm.
using it against Zen since he has so much armor.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the broken thing with Zen, right? Like people complain about, oh, you can just like Zen can always do their big turn, and before that they can like have 7 block value, right? So
Yep.
they just chuck out all of their armor and just go big. So if I use scale pillar,
Mm-hmm.
if I scale pillar and then like I isolate, they cannot just like chuck all of their equipment,
Yeah, because
or
it's
else like
only going to be like one block, one block, one block, and zero block. So it went
yeah,
down from seven to three.
yeah, and you need to like basically put one more card from your hand,
Yeah.
which translates to you don't have enough big turns, right? Or like yeah, basically a big turn.
Okay. Cool. So for KO, what do you bring in?
For KO, it depends actually. So obviously, like all of the defense rations kind of like went in
Uh huh.
for KO. Inertia trap is a really good card as well for KO. They usually wanna like
Set up their
arsenal
blood
their
rush.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right, and they have a lot of like pluses, like they a lot of like buff cards such as like maybe well blood rush bellow, bear fangs, like they have a lot of those right now. uh, I obviously use Balance of Justice,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, I use the Equipment Dagger as well because most of the KOs doesn't bring any symbolos or like any defense rations
Mm-hmm.
that you can punish with the Nerf Scalpel and Flake Knife combo. And sometimes I side in Spreading Plague for I would say like for matchups that usually like kind of hard for me to get through, right? Because KO can. So when I was in Phuket, I met this KO who opted to play like a fatigue style, and I was just kind of
Oh yeah, I saw that match.
yeah, yeah, basically like I was kind of like taken aback because like, huh, I actually don't have damage to kind of like penetrate KO, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's kind of like the Victor matchup where I just couldn't like close the game, and Spreading
Yeah,
Plague is a
cause
really
their
really
weapon is
good
better than
card.
yours. It deals three instead
Yeah,
of one. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, against Azalea.
Azalea, I just sat in the defense
Uh
reactions,
huh.
and uh, sometimes, well, most of the times I side out the rebel and put in like the usual 3 blocks, maybe like Spreading Plagues, or like maybe 1 copy or like 2 copies of like Amnesia or Weakest Link, just because it
Okay,
blocks
just
the
because it's block three instead of you don't really
yeah,
care about the on hit. Okay,
yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah, since these are pretty standard, the new interesting choice is the weakest link, and but
Mhm.
from our discussion, you see you're bringing it into KO, you're bringing it into Zen since they have a bunch of non blocks. How do you feel this? How did this card perform?
Uh, I would say that this card is it's like it's what I expected, right? Like people see the effect, and I feel like most of the people that I talk to, they really like to overhype the card. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh wow, you discard one and then you draw. It's like that's like 2 whole cards value, right? In that single card, and it blocks for 3 and it attacks for 6. It's a popper and it costs 2. Like yeah, well, obviously I'm a Uzuri player, right? I see 2 costs, I see 6 power, and I see 3 blocks. Like, okay, that's I need to buy
Yeah, yeah.
this, right?
It checks all the boxes for you.
Exactly, it checks all the boxes. So, but yeah, I've been really impressed with the card nonetheless. Even though I say like it might be overhyped a little, but I actually bring it to my matchup against KO at I think at my second round in the Nats,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually worked as I intended. Right, I isolate and they block with their equipment. I shred the equipment. I think I shred the hand piece, like the arm piece,
Ooh.
which basically just blew up the
Yeah,
entire
it blows up in
thing.
one go. Yeah.
And I used the weakest link, and they have like a wild ride or like what is it, like the dominate one, right? The
Pulping.
six coin. Yeah,
Yeah.
like pulping. And it happens I just have like empty arsenal, so yeah, it feels really great. I got a free arsenal and I get to discard one of their cards. But
Nice.
yeah, maybe this is also like a point why really like to play aggressive Uzuri right now. It's because we can easily like empty out our arsenal, and there's a lot of stuff that kind of like regenerates our arsenal by itself, such as like Codex, and now Weakest Link is another additional.
I see. Cool. So we've talked about a bunch of the offensive and the defensive package.
Mhm.
What's these? So are these four cards only dedicated to Enigma, or are there other matchups where you bring in the extra go again and yeah, the extra go agains and the pick to pieces?
So for these, like for looking for scrap and nimble strike, I usually only use it for like you said, Enigma,
Mm-hmm.
and Kano actually, like
Ah,
because
I see. Because you want to
yeah,
pressure.
exactly. I only bring one AB, and basically it's just race, and whoever gets the zero first win. Is like just your Unga Boonga brain just like kind of like activate, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was wondering why only one AB? Is it because you're 32 red and you don't have any blues to pay?
Yeah, exactly. Like I only have 9 blues. Like I might as well cut the AB, and I don't know. I was trying to use like spell void, but maybe I'm like Uzuri was just too slow like compared to other decks, right?
Yeah,
Like if
yeah,
I face again a Viscerai, I think I will just be
yeah.
fucked.
So this is a two in one. You use it for the rune blades and use it for Kano. Since if you
Hmm.
bring the spell fray, you can't use the spell fray against rune
Hmm.
blades. So
Yeah, exactly.
efficiency. So Snapdragon's Killers, does this go in with the looking for scrap nimble strike package also?
Yeah, usually for Enigma, I just play Snapdragon. I play Weakest Link.
Mm-hmm.
I don't bring any defense reactions. I bring Spreading Plague,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty good against Enigma actually.
Oh yeah, it's
Uh,
horrendous. I played into you as an Enigma and that card got me every time.
exactly, like it's just so annoying. Uh, and yeah, I bring like two pick to pieces. I
Mm-hmm.
used to run the three, but I just feel like pick to pieces is just really hard to kind of like activate.
Yeah, because you need to play an attack reaction, right?
Yeah, and well, maybe the fun part is like I can kind of like Uzuri my way into pick to pieces, so it kind of like
Ah, so
activate by
instead
itself.
of using it as a starter, you're using it as you stealth it out of Uzuri
Yes.
instead of yeah, 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 okay.
Yeah. So
That's very
after
neat. That's very
isolate,
neat.
I pick to pieces it. Right. Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so that's it for the deck tech portion of the interview. Now we're gonna keep it quite short. We're not gonna dive into the maybe board, since we still have your tournament run to discuss. You basically went undefeated in the classic, in the whole Swiss portion. So
Hmm.
talk me a bit through each round, just a bit like what hero you were facing. We knew it was a win, so you don't have to disclose the win or lose. Just
Okay.
uh,
Sure.
just what hero you were facing and what are there any interesting moments in
Hmm.
that match?
So so let's start with my first round, which is like I was playing against a Victor.
Okay,
So Victor usually is a like Uzuri is a bad matchup against Victor, right?
I
Because
see.
they
Especially
will
since
just
you're the
outvalue.
aggressive version, right? And Victor
Yeah.
loves playing against aggressive decks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But actually, like, if we want to compare and contrast between like the aggressive style of Uzuri and
Mm-hmm.
the more contract and blue heavy Uzuri, like the aggressive one have a more chance of winning, like against Victor.
Ah,
So
interesting.
yeah, so for round one, like I say, like maybe I kind of like I have had my share of like losing against Victor, so I kind of know what to side in and what to side out. And I guess the key card for Victor or like for playing against Victor is spreading plague, because they like to just like when you isolate and they have a shit ton of armor, they usually some victor will just like dump all of that their armor
Mm-hmm.
just so they can preserve their hand. And if you use spreading plague it, you just have tremendous value, right? And you can outvalue their ability of like drawing an extra card sometimes. And yeah, usually I just kind of like rush into Victor, and I like the thing is like usually I let's say I do E strike 7 or like even with a nimblism E strike 10. Uh, Sometimes Victor when they see their hand and they see like, oh, I have a golden sun and a pummel, I would just kind of like say no block and just golden sun pummel you next turn, right? Sometimes like I don't know. Like the thing is with people who plays against Uzuri, they see the damage as sometimes because I have a lot of threats such as CNC, surgical, and stuff. They see vanilla damage as just a damage, and sometimes they took it too much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And yeah,
understand.
and when they go below like 10 health, they kind of like realize they fucked up because oh now I will get fucked by like a bunch of isolates that will be swapped out with like a threat and a 6 power, which is basically I'm leaking 3 damage, and I also like lose like either my arsenal or my cards in hand.
I see. So yeah, you're playing towards that people don't care about your vanilla damage since they're so scared of your on hits and they take all of it and then they leak too much and then they realize it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Round two. Who is
Round
it
two
against?
is I was against KO, and it is actually it's a fairly standard match. Uh, maybe like the important part in that matchup is that I realized that they use their sash a bit early. Like I think they use sash turn 1
Oh
just
wow,
so
very
yeah,
aggressive.
just so they can like squeeze out a plain CNC. Like I don't have any arsenal, and they just want to play their hands because I inertia trap them, and
Ah, I see. Yeah.
they just don't want to lose a card, so he kind of like breaks his sash for hitting before an additional 6. Well, in hindsight, I feel like it's a pretty good move, especially like against Uzuri, where you just I feel like KO's plan against Uzuri is usually just overwhelm Uzuri with damages so that they cannot like keep a full hand or like keep an optimal hand to kind of like bluff and attack. And yeah, but like I feel like the sash wasn't enough. I'll also play around the headpiece, which is like a really important part for Uzuri players to kind of like learn.
Ah,
So
the Scalding
usually,
Flashback. I hate
yeah,
that card.
exactly. But that's the power for like that's the power in Uzuri, right? Sometimes I don't have anything in my hand. I just have like a blue stealth and like a let's say like a blue isolate and just defense rations and an empty arsenal. I will usually just like hit isolate for 1, and they usually like
Yeah,
was
they
so scared.
respect it with the
Yeah,
flashback. Yeah, yeah.
and they just waste a headpiece, and I was just happily like arsenaling my defense ration for next turn.
Cool, cool, cool. Round three.
Round 3, I was against. I was against a prism actually.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah,
I thought that we were not gonna see any Prism since I tested that matchup and Prism into Enigma was just basically unwinnable.
hmm so I think there's like only one prism as well in
Yeah,
our nationals, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it was that guy. Fortunately, I think that guy hasn't like play a lot of like Uzuri matchups with
Yeah, I
prism.
feel like Azuri is not the type of hero that usually you test out during your testing portion. You
Mm-hmm.
usually test out against popular heroes like KO, Azalea, Victor, Zen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like yeah, well, usually once in the blue moon, right? Like you
Yeah.
face like that one Uzuri or like that one prism, and it just so happened the only prism faced the only Uzuri,
Yeah,
and
interesting.
it was kind of like interesting. Uh, what I know from the prism matchup that I've been like practicing, you just need to kind of like rush them down and don't let any heralds kind of like hit. So fortunately, all of my like 6 attacks kind of like line up as a popper against his herald. Like usually when he hits me with like a herald of like like the one that creates the Spectre shield.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Anything but Herald of Triumph, I would be happily like easily like block it with a popper, right?
Yeah, since you have a lot
And
of 6 power, but
mhm,
usually prisms run like 9 Herald of Triumphs. Did you get overwhelmed
mhm.
by any?
No, so I think like the important part in that matchup is that I kind of have this uh kind of have the like pivotal moment in the early games where I kind of like contemplating whether I should flick my knife to kill the ward so that my on hits would go through.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was like playing surgical extraction and they didn't respect it and they just like put an angel in front of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of like think about it, right? I think it was like turn 1, and I was kind of like weighing my options whether I should flick it because like if I flick it like well I'm down a dagger, which is kind of bad because it is turn 1. I
Yeah.
really need that dagger, right? Later on the road, and yeah, after thinking about it, I feel like this is where because I have Snapdragon scalers, right? I
Oh,
this
you're
is
running
oh,
snaps. Cool.
yeah, exactly. I just need to go all in. I need to really maximize my kind of like tempo,
Mm-hmm.
and so I eventually I did flick a dagger into the angel, and since then like I feel like the prison player couldn't catch up. I even like at one point he also like throw like the herald of your edition, like
Mm-hmm.
the dominate one who draws 2 cards,
Yeah.
and I just like chalk, like I just slam all of my armor, like tunic, flick knife. It goes like into that, just so that he couldn't get any uh, what is it like figment to search.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Awesome. So you're 3-0, heading towards the draft portion. You must be feeling great at this point. You're on top of the
Hmm.
world. So let's talk just a bit on the draft. We won't dabble too long. Let's just go. What hero did you pick during the draft portion, and why did you choose it? Yeah.
So at first I was planning to just pick new and just hard force new because well it's assassin, and I think like amongst the 3 characters I am pretty well versed in assassin
Mm-hmm.
compared to the others. But after looking at my first pack, and then like the second pick, third pick, it was kind of like obvious that I was playing Zen. Well, I mean, like Zen is pretty easy, so I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's just like give a crack at it. I just basically pick whatever have the most value in that pack. Like for example, like blue block 3. Okay, cool. 3 value of cards. A red that goes for 4. That costs 0 sometimes, or like a breed anger. It costs 1, and it's like basically a 4 go again and an enabler because you create a crouching. Okay, that's a good card. So I just basically accumulated this kind of like I would say on average my one like each card in my deck is worth a little bit more than 3 points of value, and in limited I feel like that's the only important part. Like you just pick something that synergizes well with your deck and just can kind of like maximize the output of your 4 card hands, because I feel like Zen's power in this draft is that they can really like push over damage, right? They can have this like 13, 14 damage turn with 4 card hands. And in limited, you just have 20 life. So that's basically like 70% of your life if you don't block it, right? And if you block it, I can do it again.
Awesome.
Uh, yeah, and the interesting part maybe in draft, I didn't pick a single card of Chi.
I see you ran the zero transcends and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, not by choice, because like by the time I think like it was like pack 3, pick 5, where
Mm-hmm.
where I'm like, okay, time to pick a transcend card, because in my Zen deck I would much prefer like I don't know like just a couple of chi, maybe only one, right?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I guess like people just keep picking like the chi
Overvalue
card.
the chi, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Which is like it's a really good news as well for me, right? Because I'm playing an aggressive deck. If you have like 5 chi in your card, like in your deck, and your deck only has like 30 cards, so well, good luck.
Yeah. Okay. So in your pod overall, what do
Mhm.
you remember the composition?
I think at first it was like I kind of sense it was like three Zen, three Enigma, and then two news,
Uh huh.
and then no, sorry, it was like three Zen, one new, and then four Enigmas, or like three Enigmas. I don't know the other one. And then I reckon like two of the players kind of like pivoted, and the final like standing was like four Enigmas, two news, and two Zens.
I see. So Enigma was overdrafted at the
Mm-hmm.
table. So both the news and both the Zens had the lion's share of their class cards. So
Yep.
that's really good for you. Heading into round four, which hero did you face?
I faced the other Zen in my pod, which
Oh,
is
okay.
yeah,
That's gonna be quite tough since you probably want to be facing the enigmas that are gonna be, first of all, is a good matchup, and secondly they're overdrafted, which means their deck's gonna be worse than yours.
yep, exactly. Like I reckon like that was the hardest matchup I feel in the whole draft
Ah, see.
because
So round five and round six were easier than four.
I would say so. I would say so
Okay.
because for round four I go first, which is unfavorable, but eventually I kind of like squeeze out a win because like my 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 Zen's deck is just basically 16 red, 12 blue, and two yellows that block three. It was just a good deck. I feel.
Awesome, awesome. Okay. So round five, what did you face?
Round five I face against an Enigma.
Yeah.
I
So
would
it's gonna be
say yeah,
easy.
but I think that one's like it's the better Enigma, right? It's like amongst the four, I think that have the best deck. I feel, which
Oh, was
is
this against Odie?
yeah, it was against Odie, and for some reason, like he got squeezed by another Enigma players. Like so, his left is Enigma and his right was Enigma as well. But he ends up with like three red spectral manifestation, something like that. Just the spectral shield
Yeah,
for the
yeah, the
counter.
one with the plus one counters.
Yeah, and like he got like basically a full suited armor. So yeah, it was a tough battle, but yeah, I just kind of like
And
played
yeah,
it
player
value.
diff also. Yeah, Odie is a
Yeah,
scary,
Audi is
scary
just a
player.
really good. Yeah, he's just a really good player in general, right?
Okay, so
Yeah.
round six, your final portion of the draft.
I was against New, which have the leg piece and the arm piece,
Uh huh.
which I kind of the thing is sometimes when you don't play a lot of limited and you're playing new, sometimes you just kind of like get run over by Zen, and I feel like since my deck is just so solid, you just have to block really well, and I just happens to have this insane like I think 15 damage turn, and my opponent didn't really respect it. They just block it halfway, and then they just kind of realize like, oh, I'm way over my limit here, and they just start blocking. And at the end of the day, they have two cards left, and they just like dagger, and then do another dagger, and they just end their turn, and just okay, sweet, I can play again.
Yeah, you took two damage and then you're gonna send another full four card hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so at this point you're 6-0, basically locked for top eight since at
Hmm.
54 players, if one or two XM3s will make it, and you being winning the six up front almost
Hmm.
guarantees you for the top eight. So you must be feeling really good at this point. So what were the thoughts running in your head? Did you know that you were safe at this point, or did you just feel like you needed to secure one or two more wins to
I
clinch the
think I
top
was
eight?
safe right at the time, but yeah, I mean like my brain was just thinking like okay, let's just squeeze out another one so that I really make it to top eight, right? Because I really want to go to worlds.
Awesome. Let's go into your round seven matchup. What hero did you face, and what were the interesting moments?
Round seven I was against I think an Azalea. Well, it's like Uzuri versus Azalea. Usually, it's like a really favorable matchup for Uzuri,
Uh-huh.
except for some Azalea that's playing really aggressively, like the one that brings like yellow spire sniping.
Ah,
But other than that, I feel like I'm pretty well versed in the Azalea matchup, and I feel like it's like maybe a 60-40 matchup. So, yeah, I'm just scared. I'm just playing like usual, and yeah, I just kind of like beat Azalea by value.
awesome. So, did you feel your inertia traps played a lot of dividends there, or did it not show up at all?
I think for for the seventh round, it didn't show up. I think, but
I see. Was this
yeah.
against Azuf or a
Yes,
different one?
yes, it was
Ah,
against
okay.
Azuf,
Yeah, another
and
top eight
mhm.
player there. So yeah, you secured the win. You're 7-0. You're guaranteed 100% for sure, locked for top eight.
Mhm.
Uh, heading in towards round eight. Who are you facing, and what hero were they using?
I face against Odie again. This time in CC, and I face against a Bolton. And yeah, we just kind of like play, and I just happens to like concede.
I see. Yeah. But if you played that out, how you feel the Bolton
Mhm.
versus Uzuri matchup would pan out?
I think it's a bit of like 50-50, right? Odie is a really good Bolton player, and well, I would say like it's like a 45-55 if I'm playing against Odie because
Yeah,
he's
everyone's
just
unfavored against OD.
yeah, he just have that buff, right? That
Yeah.
natural buff.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I feel like Uzuri is a pretty good matchup against have a pretty good matchup spread against Bolton because first we have a lot of like reactions that didn't pump their like charger
Yeah,
plus
yeah.
one attack, and yeah, I feel like value wise, I think like as long as I'm consistently like blocking good, like blocking clean, and I didn't like kind of like leak damages, so that I'm in the beacon of light kind of threshold. I think I'm fine with it.
Oh yeah, were they running Raiden or a combo against you?
Oh, they're running Raiden.
I see. Makes sense since combo would get easily
Hmm.
get disrupted by assassins.
Yep.
Okay, so you conceded to a friend to guarantee OD's top eight slot since you were
Hmm.
paired down, right? OD was 6-1 and you were 7-0 at that point.
And I also like kind of want to guarantee one of my friends,
Yeah.
Julio as well, right?
Okay, nice. So your final round of CC, round nine. Who are you facing, and what hero were they using?
I was facing AJ, and I think he's playing Azalea. Yeah.
Okay,
The important part is that he's using Dreadbore.
Dreadbore. Okay,
Yeah.
so not on the usual Death Dealer. Yeah, I was just about to ask, were there any major differences between Edge's Azalea and Azuf's? So other than
Yeah.
the weapon, were there any other major differences? And how did the match play out? Was it close? Was it a run over landslide?
I would say like it's a bit annoying, right? Because I haven't played against a Dreadbore in a long time,
Uh huh.
and
And you
they
brought
like
the
to.
8D reacts?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, yeah.
And they like to play, what is it, like release detention combo or like the battering bolt. They just like to play those kind of arrows
Uh huh.
and kind of like pumps, and it's just a bit annoying. But at the end of the day, I feel like Uzuri uh, is just a better matchup against like have a better matchups in Furzing and Azalea.
Awesome. So you took the win. You're 8-1 with the one being a concession. So
Mhm.
you're the first seed towards top eight. So let's go towards the top eight. Did you plan out? Did you see the bracket and plan out? What you're gonna face in the top eight, top four, and
Mhm.
finals if you before going in, or did you just okay a top eight versus this, and then you're focusing on that?
I feel like throughout the brackets, I kind of sense like I have this favorable matchup into everyone until final. Like it was either I was facing either KO or Azaleas, which
Uh
is
huh.
I'm well versed into.
Yep.
And for the finals, well, let's be honest, it's most probably gonna be OD because OD is just OD, right? Or actually like the other bracket is actually pretty scary as well, right? In the OD brackets,
Yeah,
there's
it was
like
all the other heroes were in the other bracket. So you had the dash, Ricky Lianta on the dash, Handi
mm-hmm,
Wijaya on the Zen, and
mm-hmm,
Odi Winata on the Bolton, being the three non KO, non Aza heroes other than you,
yeah,
because you were the only non KO, non Aza in the split bracket,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
And shout out to three of those players, right? Like three of those players have been notoriously like just a really good player in Indonesia, and yeah, they're bringing their own specialty deck. And yeah, well, yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, I was kind of worried, but yeah, I kind of like at the very least, I kind of know that it was pretty favorable for me to go to the finals, right? Throughout, like
Hmm.
just by looking at the matchup spread. But yeah, shit happens. I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
faced against
Let's
a KO.
break
Yeah,
down
sure.
the top eight matchup. It
Mm-hmm.
was on stream, so for those of you who want to watch it, it's on the High Rollers Production YouTube channel. The
Yep.
VOD is there, so if you want to see what happens there, you can see it for yourself. But here we're gonna hear it from Justian himself. What went down and what you think and what turn was the pivotal moment where you felt like uh, Julio's KO is running away with it.
Mm-hmm. So, well, first of all, well, shout out to Julio. Like Julio is just a really, I think right now he is the best KO player in Indonesia, and
Well,
he
we can
just
say that
plays
he is the
a really good
best
band.
player, full
Well,
stop, in
yeah. Now
Indonesia.
that he's champion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, basically, I was kind of nervous, right? Because I played again, like against a lot of KO, and I actually uh was against Julio in the pro quest where I bring Uzuri and
Mm-hmm.
he brings his KO and I lost. And from there, I guess like there's just this kind of like uh confidence issue that like when I get like battle against Julio, and but yeah, so basically I pick second, drew my card. It's just absolute like dark water. I got like I don't know like just two isolates, two shreds kind of hand, and I think I get those bricky hand like two or three times throughout the match. And fast forward, it was like he was at like 12, I was at like 9, and I remember vividly like I only got one card left in hand, which is just a red isolate. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
forced to block everything the previous turn, which left me with only like red isolate, and then my arsenal is like a codex, and I just hit him for just a plain 3 damage isolate, just so that I can kind of like squeeze out the gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he used no fear, and at that moment I kind of like noticed that he only used 2 cards to banish no fear effect, so he have one card remaining and no arsenal.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, uh, I kind of contemplate to myself like maybe I should flick knife this and then like use my codex with like flick knife, get through the no fear, it gets the on hit, and then like use black deck and then like codex
Yep.
and strip whatever that card is in his hand because it's probably a Bloodrush Bellow, right?
Uh-huh.
And for some reason, like it just didn't like I just couldn't see that as a worth kind of like play. Like I kind of see that okay, 9 life is a pretty good lead because mind you, I still have my tunic, I still have my flick knives,
Mm-hmm.
and Julio was basically out of armor. And if the games were like played long enough, I feel like I have like a 75 to 80% chance of winning.
Mm-hmm.
So and plus my codex doesn't have any target. Like the best target I think it was like legit like a just prognosis.
I see. Since you
Yeah.
at even at that late stage of the game, I remember you did not have any leave no witnesses in
Yep.
your discard pile or in your hand since they were stuck
Hmm.
in the bottom of your deck.
Yeah. So I guess my judgment was like, okay, this is not worth it. This is I can use this for another no fear kind of like cards, right?
Uh
Like
huh.
that was the first copy of no fear. I can use it for the other two, and I still have pretty solid life, which is like, well, 9 sounds a bit low, but like I kind of like I was certain like I can kind of like squeeze out the win with just 9 life.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I didn't respect the no fear. I just end my turn, and he just blood rush bellow me, which is whatever actually, because I kind of like anticipated. And unfortunately, he follows it up with another blood, like 2 blood rush bellows turn after that. So yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And after that, and it was just so happened that I draw one of the dead touches, which is like the
A two
weaknesses in
block.
the, yeah, Uzuri deck. And yeah, I ended up like couldn't block it. I was one off, which is the dead touches difference in the block value.
I see. So, yeah, congratulations to you and
Hmm.
for making it towards your top eight. This is your second nationals, right?
Yep.
So last year you were a very new player, I heard, since I was
Yep.
not there. So how did you feel you progressed throughout the season of between last year's nationals towards this year's nationals, making it all the way to top eight and just barely missing out on the top four or finals?
Hmm. Well, I feel pretty good, obviously, right? Because last year I was just a baby in Flesh and Blood. It was like I was 2 months in the game, and I
Wow, two
just,
months. Okay.
yeah, I missed my tunics. I didn't know what I was doing, and yeah, but I was just still having fun. Right now, I feel like I'm just kind of like a bit proud of myself because I can kind of like have I made it to top 8, and which guarantee me for the world's invitation. So yeah.
Awesome. So you're definitely going to Osaka to fight for Indo Pride, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely going to go there and show what Uzuri can do, right?
Awesome. So before we close this interview out, you have the platform for yourself to give any shout out that you want to any person or place or yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
shout out to my all of my amazing community, like Fab community. Shout out to High Rollers Production. Shout out to Mas Bule Main. Shout out to everyone in Indonesia that's playing Flesh and Blood. I feel like you guys are a really good community, and without you guys, I think like I wouldn't be playing this game for this long.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Justian, and congratulations once again. That's it for today's interview, and as always, sampai goodbye.
Sampai goodbye.